And now we finish up with we'll drop down to Class A, where 6-1 Regina plays host to 4-3 Wapello. As also has been the theme here for us today. The local team Regina had the week off, had the bye, whereas Wapello played Columbus and won convincingly 56-6. Unlike the theme that we've been going through here in these previous games, Ryan, this is not a first-time meeting. In fact, these teams played this season with Regina winning 43-16.
And they've seen each other a lot the last couple of years too. I mean, I think they were in the same district another time, if I remember correctly, in 1A.
I'm looking. They played in 16 and 17.
Okay.
Regina won 48-6 in 2016 and 56-7 in 2017.
So again, what do you talk about in the postseason? The weather, what's it going to do? Weather is going to change a little bit. Everybody talks about this. You run the ball, right? And it's, again, this has a lot to do. I don't think you can make this argument. This has a lot to do with level of competition. When you start out with Pleasant Valley and Clear Lake, Pleasant Valley is still undefeated in 4A, right?
Yeah.
But Regina's last 5 games, so 5 games against teams within their class, rushing total is 279, 194. That was the game against Wapello. That's actually their lowest total during this stretch. But then 246, 260, and 257. Also worth noting, total yardage in that stretch, Rob, 448, 422, and then their last 3 games, 505, 507, 513 total yards. Cliche, Regina's got it rolling, man.
Is that good?
I mean, it is good. I'll just leave it at that. It's quite good. Just yards per play too. 10.4, 7.4, 8.5, 10.8. Last game, 15.6.
Wow. That is good. I don't have to ask.
We talked about this before that game as we previewed that game, and you said, what you get in, you get out of this game, whatever. And I just said, you just want to be as clean as possible. I mean, it's just what they've done for so long, where they play good teams early. They play their regular season, and you just kind of forget about them for a while because they're rolling along against teams in their class. And then at the end of the year, you go back and watch them, and you're like, holy cow, they're at a whole nother level. Because they work through that whole middle of that season when they get the attention early from like the media people. They're playing the big schools. Here's these big games. And then you kind of, I don't want to say you forget about them, but you know what I mean? Like they're winning these games. They're winning their district. They're winning the district championship. And then you come back at the end and you watch them, and they just improve so much. And I mean, huge credit to their coaching staff. All the Ed Hinkle and Jason Dumont and Marv Cook and those guys, they do a great job. They're rolling into the postseason. This is a team they handled the first time, but my key
senior quarterback, senior running back, senior star receiver, very experienced team.
What they're doing, I think better, and what I'm anxious to watch them do in the postseason, because we both fully expect them to make a deep run this year. Running game than they have been the past couple seasons, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Back to kind of where they were running the football, the last couple of times they were in the 1A championship game. This is how good Theo Coley, their senior running back, has been this year. He's been so good this year, Rob, that Ashton Cook's thrown for 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns, and Alec Wick has been just probably about the best, most productive receiver in the state again, with 39 catches for 725 yards and 12 touchdowns in 7 games. And he has better stats than both of those two. That's how, I mean, you really think about that every week that I'm doing my Regina recap or my Regina getting the story or reading the story if we had a reporter at the game. Theo Coley's been getting interviewed, and he's been the story of the game each game. And when you're doing that, and Alec Wick has been the most productive receiver in the state this season, as he has the last 2 years. he's just an incredible player. By the way, anybody watching this, I saw on Twitter this week his huddle highlights. I watched it twice back to back because he makes several plays in that, and I don't do that a ton, but I just saw it and I watched back to back because he makes some plays that I was like, I got to circle back and watch that again. I mean, he's become so good after the catch, Rob. He's always been really good in his route running, one of the best high school route runners you see, but he's become so difficult to tackle. He had a play on there where he cut back all the way across the field, and I think every single defender had a hand on him at one point, and then when they finally tackled him, it was like 7 guys that tackled him. But quickly on Coley, Rob, 987 rushing yards, so he needs 13 yards, which I think that he'll get on Friday. He needs 13 yards to get 1,000.
That's the kind of expert analysis people expect when they listen to this podcast.
That I think that he'll get 13 yards?
Yes.
Well, what's the over-under on number of carries that it takes Theo to get 13 yards?
2.
I think that's probably pretty safe. But he's averaging – we talked about this with the Mediapolis backs, Rob. He's averaging 9.6 yards per carry on the season. He has 20 touchdowns. And then what makes him so perfect for this Regina offense, with as good as Ashton Cook is, he has 14 receptions for 239 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, averaging 17 yards a catch and almost 10 yards a carry. You know, with quick math, it's like he's averaging, 14, 15 yards every time he touches the football. So that's an area where I'm really excited to watch them in the next couple of weeks, assuming they win on Friday and they get repotted. They redraw the pods and you see who they're going to get. I think their ability to control the game with the running game is what
Ed
sets them
Hinkle's
apart
going to
this
have
year.
some wrinkles too. Ed Hinkle's going to have some wrinkles as these playoffs unfold because he has the experienced players. You can open up the playbook a little bit more.
Absolutely. And I saw them a couple of times last year, and they're a different team, just like everybody is. And they're in a different class this year. But when they struggled last year in the games that I saw them, Dyke, New Hartford, and Van Meter, again, 2 really, really good football teams.
Oh, yeah.
So let's not make it seem like it's just Regina. But when they struggled in that games is when those teams were able to make them a little bit one-dimensional and made, really able to key in on Ashton Cook in the passing game. And, in that Van Meter game, they didn't have Alec Wick. But when they were able to run the ball successfully last year, it's not rocket science. That's when they were really able to have success. Well, I'm sure that was a little bit of an emphasis for them this year, but they've done it really well this year. And so when you're able to have that type of balance with those 3 key playmakers, I'm not really positive, who you try to take away. Because the other thing, too, that we haven't talked about that will be fun to get into, assuming they continue to keep winning playoff games, is Ashton Cook can be really effective for them in the run game, too. Yeah. It has been in past years, and that's something that they haven't showed a lot either. And that's, you mentioned the wrinkles that Coach Hinkle will have. That's one, too, where if they're getting certain looks, don't be surprised to see Ashton Cook have a 100-yard type rushing performance either, depending on what teams throw at him defensively. But they're rolling, and it's the least. That's probably the least surprising thing that I've ever said on this podcast is the fact that we're in the second round of the playoffs and Regina looks like they're playing their best football.
Wapello is averaging 8.5 yards per rush. I think a lot of that damage is done in the games that they beat North Cedar 70-12 and beat Columbus by a combined, 105-13. So some lopsided games there, but Jake Gustafson, a sophomore running back, has 631 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. And he's also caught 245 for 3 touchdowns through the air. So it's not a walkover game for Regina. Wapello can be dangerous, but if Regina, it just seems like if Regina plays a clean game, it shouldn't lose.
Yeah, and I know I say stuff like this every week, but Wapello's not a bad football team, Rob. They've had, I think, 4 straight seasons now where they've won. Are they 4-3? I think the previous 4 years. So the previous 4 years, they've had winning seasons. They've won at least 5 games, and they had a 6-win season in there too. So this isn't, you look at this round of 32 where the playoffs are expanded this year or whatever. They're a good football team. Regina handled them the first time, and you would expect them to do that again. But let's not just that game, I'll say this. That game was close in the first half. It wasn't one of these Regina games that's 42-0 at halftime and then ends up 42-14 or 49-14. I think it was 27-6 maybe at halftime. I watched some tape of that game, some highlights of that game actually. They have some guys that can play, and again, it's kind of the same thing as if they're going to come out. We've talked about with several other games. You expect them to come out and throw everything they've got at you. You know, the quicker that Regina can kind of get some separation in this game, the better for them.
And that game will be played at 7 p.m. on Friday night, October the 23rd at Regina High School. So as we said earlier in the podcast, going to be cool temperatures, but hopefully no precipitation. So everybody bundle up. We may see you out at a game. Brian and I will both be out at games this